Brenda will tell you that her journey began the time that she was born. Her journey into the teachings of New Thought and the Science of Mind, however, began in 2010 when she first attended the Joyful Gathering Spiritual Center service and immediately discovered that she found the home that she's always been seeking. The desire to take every class she could invited her to become a practitioner, then a minister. She is now a licensed minister through Joyful Gathering and accredited through Emerson Institute. Brenda is deeply committed to her spiritual community and embodying the teachings of Science of Mind in her daily life. She is especially dedicated to the teachings about healing. She speaks about healing as it relates to our mind, body, spiritual being, through cultivating the awareness of our emotions and our thinking, and integrating these into the fullness of the concept of self. She will tell you that we have come to the physical plane to heal and to be healed, and to love and be loved. Today, Reverend Schuck will speak about the power of cultivating awareness, conscious versus unconscious creation. Let's give a warm welcome to Reverend Brenda Schuck.
Thank you so much, Dana, for that warm greeting, and everyone here today. I'm very deeply pleased to be speaking to everyone today. Reverend Margaret's theme for this month, as we all know, has been solar power, about the energy by which everything takes place, and our ability to activate the energy of creation. In Creative Mind and Success, Ernest Holmes says that creation is the visible appearing from the invisible. What a wonderfully simple way of defining creation and understanding the creative process of Science of Mind, that Science of Mind teaches. These teachings specifically tell us that thought is the basis of what is created in our lives. How we create our lives through our thinking by virtue of the fact of how the law works. We're all familiar with this. The seed, our thought, germinates in the soil, the creative medium, which is the law, and it produces the plant, the manifestation, the thing, the experience in our life. And this is what we've been discussing all month. And here is the important thing. There is never a moment when we are not creating. As Holmes says, creation is going on all the time. We should realize this and learn how to control it so that there may be created for us the things that we desire and not those that we do not want. So learning how to control what we create is based on our thinking. And the degree to which we are aware of our own thinking. And this is what we're going to talk about today. We'll look at the subject of conscious versus unconscious creation and how cultivating our awareness of our thinking plays a major role in the life that we experience. We want to be the captains of our own ships, first by being aware of our thinking, then by directing our thought and being intentional with our thought in order to manifest what we desire instead of what we don't want. These questions have been familiar to you by now. Have you ever wondered why what's showing up in your life doesn't match up with your dreams, with the good of God that we so often speak of? Are you living an unconscious life? Are you creating by default? And what does this mean? Have you ever wondered how some people seem to have it all, while others struggle and work hard their whole lives and still have little to show for it? What is the difference between those who are creating the exact lives they desire and those who are not? Now let's look at this story. A weary evangelist knocked on another door, fully expecting to have it slammed in his face. Sure enough, the older woman who answered angrily demanded that he leave once she figured out why he was there, and she slammed the door closed. The woman shouted, "Get your foot out of my door," and the door bounced back open. "But ma'am," the evangelist began, when the woman again slammed the door in his face, and once again it bounced back open. "I said, get your foot out of my door," the woman yelled. She slammed the door closed, and one more time it bounced back open. "But ma'am," the evangelist said, only to be cut off. "Don't talk back to me," screamed the woman in rage. "I want you off my property." She slammed the door a fourth time, only to see it bounce back open a fourth time. Finally, the evangelist beat a hasty retreat down the sidewalk and said, "Ma'am, you'll be able to close your door if only you move your cat out of the way." So what does this story have to do with today's subject? Like I've said, thoughts are things. Our thinking is based on what we believe about ourselves and others, and our beliefs about what is possible or not governs our life experience. But oftentimes we're not aware of our thinking or the beliefs behind our thoughts that are the basis of what we are co-creating. This unconscious or subconscious realm of thought, it is the unconscious or subconscious realm of thought, and like the cat that was in the way of the woman trying to close her door, we don't see this. And these things can block us from what we want. Today we'll discuss how cultivating awareness, most especially about the thoughts which do not serve us, that are hidden from our view, can be helpful. Among the thoughts that are hidden is the pesky realm of false beliefs that we talk about all the time. The human realm that includes the collective unconscious or the conditioning to which all of us have been subject growing up. And we're creating by default when it is these thoughts that are governing our thinking. The lawofattraction.com website states that we are only consciously aware of a small percentage of our thinking, and that 88% of our thinking is governed by the subconscious. That is a staggering number. Up to 88% of our ability to create can be governed by that which lies in our subconscious minds. So I hope you can begin to understand the power that our false beliefs and conditioning that has shaped us have. You know this is happening if you seem to experience the same situations over and over again. The same bad relationships, the same financial challenges, the same frustrating work situations, the same health issues, and so on. We want to create intentionally by consciously taking back the power each of us came to this earth possessing. This is about actively participating in our total design of our lives. We can do this by cultivating an awareness of what lies in our own individual unconscious realms of thought, the ones that operate within all of us. And we can do this by becoming more fully aware of the subconscious thoughts that may be getting in the way of our moving forward, the thoughts and the beliefs that we are not consciously aware of, the ones that do not serve us, the ones that are in our way like the cat in the doorway. And sometimes we simply don't know that it's a cat in our way until something happens that brings this to our attention. And sometimes the universe that always has our backs has a way of doing this for us. That 88% is a powerful creative force when it's based in thinking that does not serve, thinking that is rooted in false beliefs or the stories that we've made up about ourselves and our lives that aren't true. So let's examine this power. In the glossary section in the back of the Science of Mind book, it says this about unconscious thought, quote, "A man does not always think about the particular disease he finds himself experiencing, but his subjective mind may have been entertaining combinations of thought which logically produce certain diseases. If he were angry much of the time, poison would be secreted in his system, and there would be a tendency to manifest some disease. The manifestation itself might be a disease he had never heard of, and he would say, How could my thought have anything to do with such a disease when I never even heard the name of it? Yet it's not so difficult to see how his thought had been the causation back of the disease, end quote. We can understand this through our understanding of conscious versus unconscious creation. Case in point, I give you my story. And some of you have already heard this story. I don't want to belabor it, but it's very useful in illustrating what I'm speaking about today. In 2003, I was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, and RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy, also known as CRPS, chronic regional pain syndrome. Both of these diseases are autoimmune diseases. And MS is a disease you're probably more familiar with that happens when the transmission of signals from the central nervous system to the body are compromised, and various bodily functions like movement of the large muscle groups are impaired. RSD is less well known, and it's often characterized by pain. It's also based in the faulty transmission of nerve signals. But RSD involves faulty signals that affect the function of the sympathetic nervous system versus the central nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the system that governs the bodily functions that take place without our conscious participation, like breathing, circulation, body temperature regulation, things like that happen automatically without our even thinking about it. So my symptoms included neuralgia, I had stabbing or burning pain, numbness in my hands, feet, and legs. Sometimes I dropped things, threw pens across the room. I had trouble dressing myself, closing buttons. Sometimes I had stiffness and weakness in my legs. I would occasionally fall down and need help getting up. I had spasticity in my feet. They twitched uncontrollably. And there were times when this was so extreme that I had to give up driving. I had balance issues, and I often veered in one direction or another. And I only mention these things to let you know how severe the symptoms that I was experiencing were at the time. At first, I turned to Western medicine, but transformation and healing began for me when I turned to alternative modalities. And that journey that started from the manifestation of a physical disease in my body found its way to the exploration of the metaphysical realm, the connection of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And so my spiritual awakening began as a result of these diseases. And a huge awakening happened for me as a result of a life-altering experience I had that so clearly illustrates the power of those subconscious beliefs that we're talking about today, those thoughts and beliefs. And this was not long before I discovered science of mind. And again, the universe was conspiring for my highest good, and I was being led in all that took place, including the manifestation of those diseases in my body, and I really clearly believe this. They became the gateway of transformation for me. I had begun using meditation as a tool while I was undergoing treatment. I didn't have any formal training in meditation, and a few years later I enrolled in a mindfulness meditation class because I wanted to learn more about meditation and how to use it in my life. During one of our sessions, the facilitators led us through a fight or flight experiential exercise. I was guided into a forest where I stood alone, and where suddenly I was faced by a huge tiger that was a very real and extremely palpable threat to my life in those moments. The experience was so palpable as the facilitator led us through the physical experience of what happens in the body when in fight or flight mode. I was breathing very rapidly. I felt completely helpless and so frightened. I could feel my heart rate increasing, my blood pressure increasing, and as the facilitator explained, those things would allow the nutrients and oxygen to move out of the major muscle groups of the body into the areas that might allow for a fast getaway should that be necessary. So during the fight or flight response, our body is trying to prioritize. So anything it doesn't need for immediate survival is placed on the back burner. And this means that, for example, digestion, hormone production, tissue repair, and other things like that are temporarily halted. And instead, our body is using all of its energy for the most critical and crucial priorities and functions. These functions that are put on the back burner are the functions of the sympathetic nervous system. In fact, it is the sympathetic nervous system that is responsible for how our bodies react to danger. It is the sympathetic nervous system that is responsible for fight or flight, for that response. So do you remember what I said about RSD, that it's a disease of the sympathetic nervous system? And are you making the connection here that I made at the time? For me, in that moment, it was a flash of awareness, and it was a flash of clarity, and I realized I had been living my entire life in fight or flight, and that this had resulted in a physical disease in my body that mirrored what goes on during fight or flight. The feelings of deep shame that I'd taken on about who I was growing up in a dysfunctional home became beliefs that I was unworthy, unlovable, and most of all, unsafe. And my thoughts then were that I needed to protect myself, to guard myself. And so my thoughts that I was in constant danger, that I was unsafe, that I was unloved, unworthy, were further complicated because I felt the need to hide those feelings, because I had such deep of shame about who I believed I was. I realized that these unconscious thoughts and beliefs had been ruling my thinking. They had translated into a disease that literally resulted in my sympathetic nervous system not working. I was so overcome by emotion in the moments that followed that exercise. And when I look back on it now, I recall feeling like I couldn't breathe. And I sobbed when I got in my car. I was so filled with a deep feeling of grief. My body had been in survival mode for all of my life, a process that resulted in the unconscious processes of my body literally stopping to work the way that nature had intended. So am I making it clear to you right now how my thinking had literally become a disease in my body?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How incredible was this realization and the start of a new beginning for me. In foundations class, among other things, we learn that our thinking is ruled by the beliefs that underlie them, and that our underlying beliefs are based on the feelings that underlie them. After going through this fight or flight experience, I became fully aware that my thinking was directly related to the manifestation of disease in my body, and I thought to myself, if thinking had created this, then my thinking could also undo it. If only I could change my thinking. And so the journey of transformation began for me. So how often do you say to yourself that you're not good enough, smart enough, good looking enough, wealthy enough, worthy enough, skinny or full figured enough, healthy enough, and so on? How often are you affirming these things through your thoughts, your words, or your actions? I often think of and refer to Don Miguel Ruiz, among others, when I think of the power of thought as we understand it in science of mind. One of his 4 agreements is be impeccable with your word. This relates not just to our words, but to our thoughts and our actions also. So I ask you again, how often do you speak unwell of yourself, or treat yourself unkindly or unlovingly? And more importantly, what does this tell you about what you are thinking, about what you are feeling, about what you are believing? Ernest Holmes teaches us that our thinking is the basis of what and how we manifest our lives. I believe that we all understand this. The point I want to drive home today is that creation has as much or more to do with the unconscious realm as it does with the conscious realm.
In order to transcend those self-defeating tapes that can play over and over again in our minds, in order to overcome that previous conditioning of life, our life experience that doesn't serve us, when we become more fully aware of our subconscious realm, and then work to change those thoughts by changing the beliefs that underlie them, we can truly begin to more fully direct our life experience. And that is what we are all about, understanding the basis of who we are, really who we are. My spiritual awakening and transformation began when I received a wake-up call. Many of us have received such calls, and these have taken various forms in each one's life. Do you have a story that's an example of such a call? Are you in the midst of transforming something in your life right now? What tools have helped you with this process? And what tools have acted as catalysts for you when you've had such awakenings? Many of our spiritual practices can change the trajectory of our thinking, like affirmations, reading, taking classes, coming to service, attending workshops, communing with like-minded people, and nature, and so on. Personally, as my story illustrates, I find that the most powerful, transformative experiences in my life have occurred from a place of stillness. But please turn to any practices that work for you in your life. And for just a moment now, I'd like to shift our energy, and I would like us to repeat the affirmation from today. So if you would repeat after me, but if you would also, as we begin, let's just shift our energy. Let's take a breath together. And we used to talk about getting in a power pose. So think of yourself from the place of power, from that place of your internal connection. And please repeat after me. And with full emotion and conviction. I am alive, awake, and aware to my thinking. As I align with the truth of my unity with spirit, I cultivate my thoughts in an affirmative, intentional manner that serves my highest good. I co-create the life that I desire and that I deserve. And so it is. And I'd like to leave you with this message. I like to think of it this way. Don't be too quick to kick the cat or cats out of your life, out of the way. They can be an invitation to examine and reframe a story or stories that lie hidden that no longer serve you. Take the time to get to know your cat. Don't simply close the door on it. Ask it what its purpose is for you, and find out what it may be there to teach you. The universe always has your back. Perhaps it is especially the noisy, loud cats that keep you awake at night that are there to become your greatest teachers. Through cultivating our awareness, we can work to change the thoughts and beliefs that underlie them to more effectively direct our thought intentionally. We can actively participate in the total design of our lives by becoming more fully aware of that which is hidden from our view and cultivate the connection, our connection to the truth of our being. Thank you very much.